Here we go.
Drum roll, please, ladies and gentlemen. This is a moment, months in the making. Sean Kubota, Magnanimous Collective. Here we are. Here we go. Season 2. Let's get it.
All right. I gotta have that in it now.
You definitely gotta have
That's the way it starts. That's the way it starts. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Magnanimous Collective. I'm your host, Sean Kubota. Let's start it off with a deep breath into the belly. And let it go.
Yeah, baby.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Dropped in to something. I don't know what we dropped into, but you're about to see.
We just cannonballed in, baby. Here we are. Here we go.
I have a very, 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 very special guest. None of this would be happening if it weren't for him, if it weren't for us. This man has been my coach for this past year. So we've been going for about, right in like 8 months now.
Yeah, almost
8
9
months.
Yeah.
He's been helping me get out of my own way. He's been a foundation of support and guidance. And we've been working through a lot of shit and been building a lot. Mm-hmm. He's born and raised Maryland.
Correct.
Until 17 and came out here to LA and has been everything from a film director and producer to now being a renowned creative coach, as well as a keynote speaker, traveling all around the world, really lighting people up. He's all about having people find their purpose, and he gets lit up and he's infectious with how he shows up. He's also an amazing dancer and just an incredible human being who is really all about helping people take up space in the healthiest of ways and the most genuine of ways. Love this guy to death. Please help me welcome Imari Tuakli.
Is it going to be like a clapping track? You know?
Clapping. I'm gonna put that shit in. I'm gonna make some corny ass shit right there. That's
like one person clapping. Like damn.
The slowest clap.
Slow clap.
With some crazy person go, woo!
Thank you, man.
Yeah, bro.
I really appreciated that. Obviously, because of the nature of what I do, I hear myself introduced, when I'm doing keynote speaking and stuff. And there's times where I hear it and I really feel it. And I really felt that one. So
thanks, bro.
I appreciate it. And I felt the love and the relationship that we have where it came from. And one thing that I'm gonna just say, even though you haven't asked me no questions yet, bro, my engine's hot. I'm ready to go.
He's leading the podcast.
Welcome back to the Imari podcast, y'all. There was something you said that I never thought of it in this way. And it's so good to hear it reflected back to me in this way. When you said he helps people take up space in the healthiest of ways.
Yeah.
I really, just like the way that you phrased that, I'd never heard it phrased like that before. And I think that it, brings up a lot of conversations of people being like, oh, it's there. If you're saying that there's a way that he's giving people permission to show up in healthy ways, that also means that there's ways to show up that are unhealthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And to be able to first identify the difference between those two. Yeah. And for you to say that I'm helping people do it in a healthy way, it means a lot to me. And I really appreciate that.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah, and big ups to Becca, who I had on the podcast just recently, because that's one of the things that she brought up is that like how she shows up, you love her.
Shout out to Becca.
Becca's amazing. Becca, you about to give birth in like a day or two? I don't even know. She just trained with me 2 days ago.
Damn.
She's supposed to give birth tomorrow.
She about to pop.
She's amazing.
She's gonna name it after Imari.
Yeah, but it's gonna be Aura. But yeah, it's a little girl. But she was talking about how she tries to give people the allowance to take up space by showing up in her way and to give people the recognition that even when they're not choosing, quote unquote, to take up space in a healthy way, in a way that allows for people to express themselves more genuinely, they're still taking up space, but in a different way, like by being a black hole of, sympathy and pity and all the things. So there's definitely a way to do it in the opposite end. But yeah, bro, thank you for having the most insane intro of any podcast so far. And I don't know if anyone's going to top it.
We out here, baby. I would like to see some competition. What y'all got?
People are going to, like, the people who have been listening are going to, like, log on to this and be like, this is different.
This feels different. Damn, he really went all out.
It always just starts off, like... Hey everyone, welcome back. You just hear Mario like, come on everyone, season 2.
Y'all?
But this is season 2.
Yeah.
This is actually, we have now breached, we wanted to get to past 21 podcasts.
Yeah.
We have now made it.
Yeah. Shout out to Sean Kubota. For the people who don't know, when we first started, ideating behind this podcast, we found a stat that said everybody wants to start a podcast.
Right.
Not everybody gets past podcast number 21.
Yeah.
Podcast number 21 seems to be like the benchmark of like, are you actually serious about this? Or are you just, maybe you just wanted attention, or maybe you just thought it was like a little passion project. Yeah. So the fact that we're even here right now is, I think extremely meaningful, and is a kudos to your commitment and your kudos to your dedication. And I know at times you're like, I don't want to do it, bro. I'm over it. Fuck this shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss, but
oh, absolutely.
I'm about to be cussing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So I think the fact that we're even here, kudos to you, man. And I can't wait for you to listen back on this podcast 10 years from now.
100%.
I can't wait for your kids to listen back, be like, damn, my daddy was popping.
I mean, I appreciate that. And the amount of gold, the amount of just absolute magic. What's the word? Gold sounds cheesy, but truly the amount, the content, the context that's been created through these podcasts has been just unimaginably profound and beautiful. And these stories and the things that have been shared and talked about, it's so much goodness that it's just like, I could keep uploading these things for like another 3, like people need to hear this stuff. Yeah. And so like, I look forward to the time too, where we've gone so far that things actually start to break through. And then it's like, we actually got to replay these ones because they're still so
hidden gems.
Oh my goodness. But thank you for being the one. It's like we made it through, after the 21 podcast, you're basically in the top 1%, which there's a shit ton. So top 1% means you're a part of a lot, but
there's a lot more in the 99.
Yeah. And just to get through that threshold too, there's been a lot to get here. And you've obviously been there as I'm leaving you audio messages, fucking being all down and shit and like, I don't know what to do. So, we made it and upwards and onward, right?
Yep.
But back to how we usually start the thing. Let's hear about you.
Okay.
So, went from Prince to King, where like, I know a bit about Imari's life in regards to, soccer, we probably talk about Maryland, but I'll let you decide where to start. But really what I love to start with our listeners is, what was the event, or maybe there were a multitude of events that led to Imari coming to the place where he realized that he was the creator of his story, and where you chose to take ownership and stop being the victim and choose to really own the responsibility of how you're showing up and how you create in your life?
Thanks for asking.
Yeah. And just to let you know, you can divulge, you can have constraint, but you don't have to, like, you're not on a time limit. You can.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
I appreciate the freedom that gives. One answer comes to my mind right now. Honestly, I think this is the answer that would come to my mind anytime, but it specifically comes to my mind right now because I actually had a conversation about it last night. And that was the day that I thought I was going to die. Have we talked about this?
We have.
Yeah. So I know the audience members haven't talked about this, so I'll give them the cliff notes. So shout out to MITT, Mastery in Transformational Training. It's a program in Los Angeles that opened my eyes to, no matter how good of a narrative I have spun about my own victimhood, because I have been through pretty traumatic things in my life, that program was the first time in my life that held up a mirror and was like, okay, you have been through some things. Is that what you want the rest of your life to be defined by?
Right.
And it was like, opened my eyes to like, fuck, like, whoa, shit. I could be so much more than a victim.
Yeah.
So that opened my eyes to that conversation. And then 2 months into that, maybe 3 or 4 months into that program, I was actually on the way home from one of those events, from one of the MITT events. And I was living in downtown Los Angeles at the time, broke. I was no offense to anybody who lives in downtown Los Angeles, but I was broke. And I was driving home and I was like 60 seconds away from home, bro. And, I'm making a turn and I see this guy run by my car and he looks like he's being chased. And I look and there are 2 guys chasing him. And Bro, it was like 6 o'clock in the evening. So it's like, you know, it's not like late night nefarious activities. It's like daylight, right? And I was just like, all right, whatever, you know, people just screwing around. Downtown. And then I heard gunshots. And I was like, oh, that wasn't just teenagers screwing around, right? And without processing, thinking, justifying, I just whipped my car around and I just started chasing the guys who ran down an alley, the guys who just tried to shoot the first guy. They ran off and I followed them in my car because, you know, I know a lot of what this podcast is built off of, a lot of what me and you connect off of is like being a man of value. Not man of value, but man with values. Different, right?
100%.
And one of my values says, I'm not going to let shit like that happen on my watch. Like, I'm going to watch somebody like get like murdered and then I'm just going to like go about my day. Like, that's why whenever I tell this story and people are like, well, why'd you chase them? I'm like, you were just going to go home and fucking Pornhub? Like, what, are you serious? And to me, it's just mind blowing that that's like even a question. And it scares me that we even live in a world where people would
most people are like that.
Yeah, they would even like ask, why would I go after this? Like, because who else would? So anyways, I like turn down this alley. I'm driving this car, and it's actually funny. I don't usually share this part of the story, but I like lost them for a second because I had to turn my car around and I didn't know where they were at. And I was driving down this alley. And all of a sudden, like, the adrenaline kind of, like, cooled off a little bit. And my mind was like, wait a second. Am I following these people so that I can tell everybody, oh, I tried to be a hero? Or am I actually following these people because, like, no, I don't believe this is right and I'm going to do something about it? And I had to, like, check myself. I don't know if it was God or whatever, but, like, something was like, before we take this another step forward, where is this coming from? Are you just going because you want to tell a cute story about how you tried to save somebody, or are you trying to save somebody? Yeah. And I like asked myself that question and I was like, checked in my heart and I was like, no, I actually want to bring these guys to justice. I know that sounds very like patriotic, but like I was
Batman.
Like, yeah, whatever.
Marty's Batman.
Black man. And I love you, man. And as soon as I like checked in with myself and realized that, as soon as I had that realization, I saw them. I have a video on my phone of these guys.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I can show you after we're done with the podcast. And as soon as I had the thought, as soon as I confirmed with myself my intention, they like ran across my line of sight. And I was like, cool, here we go. And so I'm like following them. And as I'm like following them, you know, I'm not trying to like also like get killed. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to follow them long enough so I can keep track of their location and I can convey that information to the authorities and the authorities can come and do what they need to come do. Right. And so I'm like following them. I like call 911 and I'm like trying to keep track of them while keeping track of the conversation on the phone. And all of a sudden they get to this park in downtown Los Angeles. And there was a lot of Hispanic families there. And these guys were Hispanic.
Gotcha.
And they knew some
racist.
of the... I know. Cancel me.
Just kidding.
Cancel me. At Free Imari. Cancel that. He identified somebody by a very obvious distinguishable feature on their face. Like, y'all are so wild. And I get to this park, there's a lot of Hispanic families, and they know some of these guys, and they have some conversations. I'm on the phone with the cops, and they get in a car. And that car starts going the opposite way that I'm going. So I have to turn my car around again. But as I'm turning my car around again, one of their friends steps in front of my car, stops me, looks me dead in my eye. Another one of their friends gets in a car, pulls up behind me, and traps me behind. And it was like... gang-affiliated human being in front of me, 3 feet in front of my car, and one of their friends behind me. And in that moment, it was like, oh. Now my life is in danger. Right? And, you know, I got chills thinking about it. It's like, I don't know how long that moment lasted, but like, as I'm looking at you right now, I was looking at that guy. And he was just like dead cold, staring me in the eyes like, what are you going to do? Right? Because he could tell I'm like following his friends or whatever. And I like look at him, time stretches for a moment, and then all of a sudden I zip into action. And I just say, fuck it. And I just whip my car past him. Don't know if I hit him. I don't fucking know. I whip past him and I just fly out of there. And as I'm flying out of there, it's downtown Los Angeles. It's like, you ain't gonna have like no Fast and Furious in like these neighborhoods. So I'm like, I need to get on a highway ASAP. I need to get away from these guys because the guy behind me starts chasing me, the one in the car. And so I get on the highway and I'm flying, bro. Like pulling over on like the what's the side of the road called? Yeah. I'm flying.
Whatever you can do to get past.
Whatever I can do to get past. You think I care about no speed limit at that moment? I'm just flying. And I'm flying. And I don't know how long car chases are normally supposed to last, but they don't usually last this long. I was in that car, bro, like 40 minutes flying.
Holy shit.
And it gave me enough time, like, yes, super high, peak adrenaline motions, but like because it went on so long, I started to like really process my life because I started to realize I'm about to die.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to crash this car or they're going to stop me and they're going to shoot me in the face.
Yeah.
Like those are the options that are, so it's like, okay, I'm pretty much just delaying death at this point. And so I'm like flying down the highway and I start like processing my life and all these like things from MITT, all these things that they're trying to teach you about like, you're in charge of your life. You're in charge of the thoughts that you allow. You're in charge, like all that stuff starts processing and like moving from intellectual understanding to like, oh, not only do I now understand it, now I see the cost of the life that I could have had because I didn't follow this, because I just allowed myself, because, I'm sure we'll get into it. Like I came from an abusive household. I was kicked out of my house. I was sent to military school. I like paid for my college tuition with like a change jar. Like I've been through it. I've gone through it. I had plenty of reasons to hate the world, hate myself, feel like nobody loves me and takes care of me. Like I had plenty of reason. And on the day that I was going to die, I was like, well, that's still not a good enough reason for you to let your life go to fucking shit. That's it. And I get it. People are very entranced and enamored by their victim story because it sounds really good while you're alive. And it gives you a good reason not to go after the life that you want. But I promise you, whether it's cancer, whether it's a gangbanger, whether it doesn't matter. On the last day, when you got the gun in your face, when you got you reading the final bill, when you're tucking yourself into your casket, you're gonna be like, I don't give a shit about this victim narrative. And not only do I not give a shit about it, like, oh my God, I'm actually going to die with so much regret knowing that I could have chosen something different. Yeah. So on this car chase and freaking out about my life, and I call my sister. My sister, who I don't have a relationship with. Sister who grew up in the same childhood home that I did. So the person who could best understand the victim narrative that I had, the person who most closely experienced it. And I called her and I was like, hey, haven't talked to her in years. Hey, I think I'm about to die. I think I'm about to die. And I know this is a wild conversation to have. And I'm sorry that it's happening like this, but I think I'm going to die. I think this is the end. And like, I need to do one thing right before I go. And the one thing I want to do right is tell you, please don't fucking live don't live to the excuse of your trauma. Yeah. And, she's like, that's a lot of information to just hit somebody with you haven't talked to in years. And she's like, my brother's about to die. He's giving me this like cryptic kind of message.
Totally.
And, like, she was just like overwhelmed and stressed out. But I just like needed to say that before I died. And so I called her. I said that. She was confused. I was like, I can't talk right now. I need to go. And I hung up. And that could have been the last time I ever talked to my sister. It could have been the last person I ever talked to be honest. But obviously I made it out of that situation. I like pulled off at an exit, went in this strip mall parking lot, turned around, lost these guys. It was like ridiculous.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And just drove north for a while and actually ended up at an ex-girlfriend's house. Well, now she's an ex-girlfriend, but ended up at her house because she had a gated community and I did not feel safe. And I was like, I need to be behind a gate right now with security because I don't know if these guys can still follow me, whatever. So yeah, I got to her house and just like hid for a couple days. I didn't go back to my house because I didn't know, those guys maybe knew where I lived, got my license plate number. I don't know. But yeah, it was very terrifying. But that was the day when I think back to, oh, there was a before and there was an after. There it is. Because honestly, like, I'm trying to have some compassion for myself, but I was very angry at myself that day. When I thought I was going to die, I hated myself for the life that I had lived. And it wasn't because I didn't have success or whatever. It was because I was like, oh, it's like I hated myself for hating myself. I hated myself for hating the world. I hated myself for letting all the trauma and all the pain dictate the way that I was going to interact with the world.
Right.
And that was that day.
Thank you for sharing.
Thanks for listening.
So, like, to clarify, like the hating the self is because the self-sabotaged and didn't give the allowance to be grateful for the magic that was already there.
Yeah. And the narrative of like, well, I'm a piece of shit and nobody's ever going to love me. And like, because my mom did that to me, like I shouldn't even go after the thing. Like it was just seeing all of the story and all the script that was just so unfounded. It was a reckoning.
Yeah, I can understand that. And yet, never been in that specific situation. And yet I find that whether the threat is a gang member or whether the threat is ourselves, upon ourselves, or our own potential, health. There's so, like you said, whether it's cancer, whether it's a gang member, whatever, like there's always going to be that something that comes forward and brings us to that point where we have a chance to reflect. Like, because I think the only time, and we've talked about it along the pod in regards to like grief being able to be the catalyst to be able to approach and really tap into gratitude and humility. And I feel like similar to this, like when we get to that point where we're having to be attached to the grief of the moment, like the fullness of like what this is, instead of being in the kind of very lucid, sun's out, life's good, I'm playing fun, let's get tacos, and being like, oh shit, like,
it's real
a lot.
Here.
Yeah. And not just like emotional, like I'm watching a Pixar movie, but like, oh shit, like this is it.
Life is real.
This is it. Yeah. And like this day could be like all of that, and coming to that space and being able to have the opportunity, right? Because like truly in that, just like with any type of tragic circumstance, there's an opportunity there for willing and open to seeing it and receiving it, right?
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Can I pop something in there?
Yeah.
Yes. What I hear when you say that is every once in a while, not when you expect it, but when life determines it, life is going to ask you a very big question.
Well put.
And I never want my answer to that question to be, I can't. I can't because I'm black. I can't because my mom abused me. I can't because, like, the only answer I want to those big questions is like, how do we get it done? I can. Let's go. Like, that's it. Yeah.
That's helpful.
It's like you get hit with the cancer diagnosis and life is like, do you want to keep going?
Right.
Like, oh, I can't.
Yeah.
Or you get hit with like your girlfriend broke up with you. It's like, life's like, okay, or are you going to find somebody else? I can't.
Right.
It's like, no, I will. Here I go. Like, either I can't or I will. That's the answer to the fucking question, period.
I love that. And to bring it back to something too, because it's something that doesn't surprise me, but does also like, I'm well aware of it, which is why when I have bros that I know, I think I sent it to you today, just today, about the post where it's like, when you find out your bro will not be there for you in a combat situation, they get a pizza and the guy's like, he's like, oh shit. He's imagining himself being choked out by a guy. He's like, help. And the guy's like, Jesus. But on a very real level, like, cowards are among us, and cowardice is and that's not to shame and belittle people, but cowardice can only exist within a certain level of, I'd say a certain level of trust, a certain level of, and in that trust comes a certain level of faith and knowingness about who you are, what you're here to do, and what the consequences are for your actions. If we're living in a space of delusion, if we're living in a space of ultimate fear, that can perpetuate the delusions. And then we're in this space where we either freeze or we flee. It takes a certain level of ownership and ownership as well as just like confrontation of what's going on. Not to necessarily react to fight, because there are also people who will fight in fear as well.
Yeah,
but there's a certain level of ownership to be like, you know what, I'm not going to choose to be a coward because this does not align with my values.
Exactly.
You know,
I will show up to the moment.
Yeah.
And I hear you. I agree with you. And I would just put like a little asterisk. It's like you said this idea of like, oh, well, I know who I am and I will therefore respond accordingly. And, you know, a lot of people don't know who they are.
Right.
And a lot of people, you know, maybe you're doing something you've never done before.
Yeah.
And it's like, cool. Well, if you don't have the tool of saying, I know who I am.
Yeah.
The next question is, well, do you have faith? Do you have faith that like, I have faith that if I show up, something will happen. I have faith that I will be taken care of. I have faith that like, it'll all work out. Like whatever you have faith in.
Right.
If you don't know yourself and you don't trust yourself, you got to trust in something, bro. You got to trust in like the grand narrative. You got to trust in, you know, divinity, God, what like that. Why do you think we have faith as such a fundamental part of being human? Because I remember I don't know if I said this, I tweeted it, maybe it was in a coaching session recently, but it was like this idea that like anything that is worth doing requires a little bit of faith.
Absolutely.
Like, if you're going to do something and it requires absolutely no faith because you know it's going to work out, and it's like, why even doing it, bro?
Right.
What's the point?
Right. I completely agree. Yeah, I wrote a note about it in my thing, you know, especially as we've been going through building all this, and it's perfectly on time and on brand with what's going on with myself too, is that like, you know, if the answer was assured, there'd be no need for faith.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Yeah, and also when we're doing something, and you know, obviously as we grow and as we start to make specific, maybe smaller leaps, you know, and maybe they're not as big, but in accordance with what we've already done, maybe they're huge, right? Maybe this is something monumental, even though it's a very small step. Doing that should be scary. Doing that should bring up doubt. Doing that should, you know, encumber us to a certain level where we have to reflect and be like, oh, shit, am I going to do it or am I not?
Am I going to pull through? Is it going to happen? Yeah, 100%.
And can I have faith? Because that's the opportunity for us to. Yeah. Because it's like, you know, it's like it's easy to have faith, just like it's easy to be grateful when shit is bad. Yeah. Or I mean, when shit's good. Yeah. You know. The paradox of this life is that the things that are valuable are the things that are hard. Yeah. Right.
100%. Yeah. It's like it's a dumb story, but like I saw on Instagram yesterday, they found the second biggest diamond ever since like 1902, right? And it's like, I can guarantee you that will be worth more than $5. Yeah. Why? Because it was hard to get. Right. Yeah. It's like, I can guarantee you that's probably going to have high value, right? And if you want a lot of things that are not hard to get, you know, it won't be very valuable. Yeah. And it won't be that hard to get them. Yeah, it won't be. And congratulations. You know? Like, it's like, congrats. Yeah. And I obviously, I do think that there is like an edge to the spectrum in which you are overextending and doing too much, right? And that's a lesson I have to learn. But if I'm going to have to learn a lesson, I'd rather learn that lesson than being too far in the complacency and too far in like, it's too easy. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Wow. You know, I feel like something that is alive to ask you. So this was a story, and thank you for sharing once again of you coming to this space. Obviously, it was kind of hand in hand because you were doing MITT at the same time, which is incredibly helpful, right? Just to give you tools and to be in a space where you're being cultivated in that way, to actually be able to process that in a good way. But you've been through a lot, and you've been through spaces of, you've come from this space of being, like you said, victimized. Like you were doing really good with soccer, right? Soccer player. He's shredded all the time. And ended up going and becoming a creative and becoming a director, right? And that was something that, you know, a lot of people would see as like, oh, Imari's got all this success, right? And you've told me about this, like being as depressed as you've ever been. And then coming to the space of being a creative director. So I don't know if there's something there that's alive for you that feels like something that you'd want to share. Because I feel like that's kind of like the production of Imari, right? And one other thing that I just want to say too, and maybe this all ties it together. One of the reasons that you and I got brought together in this specific way to cultivate this relationship is because Ed Milet told me that you're the perfect coach for the person you used to be, right? Yeah. And before that, I had thought my coach had to be
just like me, who had to understand all my, like, be doing the same shit.
Yeah.
Which, not to say we're doing super different things, but it's like, I'm not shredded all the time. I haven't been an award-winning director. I haven't done all. I mean, I'm the kind of the opposite of a soccer player in my build. You know what I mean? And yet, you've like seen me since day one in the sense that you see everyone and you show up when you could be a bougie LA model person, yoga person, being like, "Have you seen how I do a handstand?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you've always been that guy. And not to say that we were like super tight off the back, but I was always like, he actually saw, I wasn't invisible to him.
Yep.
And then, obviously you had been on, you had been willing to have a meeting with me when I was a financial planner and all this stuff.
Yep.
And I really respected who you were and how you showed up.
Thank you.
And so I'm curious, throughout your life and getting to this space, like, obviously this event happened, with the potential, getting killed by this gang and everything. But like, what really led to Imari becoming who you are and how you show up, and what lit you on fire to do what you're doing?
When you say what led me to be Imari, what part of Imari are you referencing?
That's a good question. I think a perfect reference to that is that Imari is actually something that I found out, like, you actually started to own as a name itself, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'd say that's maybe a perfect tie-in as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
I'd say the person who you are today more than Imari. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can do something really interesting with this. There's no part in me that wants to deny people's trauma, right? And I think that I'm afraid that people think that sometimes because I'm always focused on vision. I'm focused on their vision, right? Yeah. And it's not because I don't recognize the gravity and the weight of trauma, right? And I'm also aware that trauma can be turned into fucking power.
Yeah.
Like, like power so fucking useful that you would actually be grateful for the trauma.
Right.
Yes.
Like it's a recipe. It's an ingredient for a recipe.
And that's important, right? People realizing that there is a opportunity in which the worst thing that happened to them, they could be so fucking thankful for.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah.
And so growing up, I experienced a childhood that I would never want anybody else to have. I'm sure that people have had worse ones than me. The one that I experienced wasn't a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I, experienced emotional, physical abuse. I got kicked out of the house. I got sent to military school. We can go into the gamut of trauma that was experienced. And I committed to myself when I was younger. So something that was born of the trauma.
Right.
I was like, I'm going to make this a good fucking story. This is I am not going to go through this for nothing. And what will make trauma worse is when you go through it for nothing. Yeah. And it's just suffering. And then you're like, well, what do you, when terrible things happen, what is the first thing that people ask? People ask, why did this happen?
Right.
Which means that there's a part of your brain that it would make it better. It would fix it if I could find a why. Right?
Reason for it, yeah.
So then find a fucking why, my guy. Build a fucking why. Because otherwise, you just suffered.
Yeah, facts.
And yes, I'll have empathy and sympathy and pity for you, and eventually I'll be like, okay, cool, and I'm moving on with my life.
Yeah.
I'm not like, do you want me to just feel bad for you for the rest of forever? I don't. I want to see what you're going to do with it because I believe that you can fucking do something with it, right? And so I grew up and was like, yo, I'm going to make this worth it. Like inscribe my name in the fucking stone of the universe. I will make this a good, worthwhile hero's journey. And I committed to that like fucking young, right? Yeah. And at first I was like, oh, it's because I'm going to become a great soccer player, and I'm going to be able to write this book about how I overcame child abuse and da-da-da. And that was like the whole narrative, right? And then I moved to filmmaking. I was like, I'm going to impact so many fucking people, da-da-da-da. And like, you can say that it's like a trauma response. Cool, fucking fantastic, great. And hundreds of millions of people have seen my views and my videos.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And then you come up to me and you're like, oh, well, how did you become this Imari? It's like, yeah, the cool things that I have done or the cool things that I have lived were born of that. So they weren't just born like, oh, he's, blessed with a fucking amazing personality and like of rich parents. It's like incorrect.
Yeah.
No.
Farthest thing from the
That
truth.
is not what that is not what happened, right? This guy that I am learning to love every single day and that I have built him from the ground fucking up.
Yeah.
And I could have built him much worse.
Right. Yeah.
And if I didn't intentionally and consciously build him brick by brick, he could have turned into a fucking not somebody that you would have on your podcast, right?
Yeah.
I could have been the gangbanger that was like chasing people down,
right?
Because I had nothing to do with my life, because that's how I responded to my trauma, right? I'm sure if you go back to that gangbanger's life, you asked him about his story, I'm sure there's some trauma in there.
Yeah, pivotal moments, right?
Yeah, of course. And why else would he end up doing stupid ass shit like trying to kill somebody in broad daylight, right? So, yeah, for me, I want to be the adult version of Imari that young Imari can't wait to become when he grows up. Yeah? That's what I'm building every day. And so when I'm about to go speak in front of a bunch of people and my fucking knees are shaking and fucking my voice is quivering. Yeah, cool. Great. It's like, well, am I going to be him?
Yeah.
Because I'm doing this for a little Imari. Like, I got you, bro. Like, I got you. Yeah.
It's the sweetest thing I've ever heard you say.
Really?
I mean, not to say you say mean things, but it was the sweetest for sure. I was like, oh. And then you went into like a Southern voice, and I was like, oh, okay, there it is. There it is. There it is. Like, little Mari, you're going to be okay, all right?
You're going to be all right, boy. You're going to be all right.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Gosh, what do we do with our trauma? I mean, that's really, and so as you know, for me, the crux of this whole thing, Magnanimous Collective, which you and I helped create, like we created this whole thing, created this whole thing from the ground up, and like what the values are, what the virtues are, what, what is it about? And you only get to a space. I was talking to the pastor yesterday because he was asking about Grandpa. He was like, tell me a bit about who he was. And I was like, I got to tell you about my podcast, because when we come to the term magnanimous, to be forgiving and generous in the face of a rival or enemy, you don't get there, just like you say from your story, you don't just get there from like parents who have a lot of money and you're just born with a great personality. It takes a cultivation of spirit, a merit of the soul, right? And to come through struggle and to triumph above it, and to own your story and to have a richness of faith and of just gratitude of your existence, that you're willing to not be the coward. You're willing to put your best foot forward in the face of an enemy or a rival, because you're like, you know what? This is the better thing to do, the right thing to do. Yeah. And even if this has no positive reward for me, except for to feel aligned with who I am and how I'm showing up.
That's the only thing to do, bro.
Yeah.
That's the only thing to do. It's like, of course, if you are, for lack of a better term, a coward. Yeah. And you get presented with a massive hit, obstacle, pain, fear, whatever. If you don't have a reason to become courageous, of course, right, you will be a coward. Like, of course, that's like the smartest thing for your brain to do. Your brain's like, oh, yo, bro, no, we don't do this, bro. We gotta hide. We gotta hide. We ain't gonna. We're not one of those guys, right? Who stands up to the fight, right? Right. But that is determined by who you believe yourself to be. Right. Yeah. I believe myself to be, I am that guy. Yeah. And even if I'm not fully him yet, by choosing to be him every time I have,
Get even closer.
then I will become him.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, man. That's it.
Yeah. As you say that, and the fact that you're also so closely linked with Kaizen and stuff, his whole thing is the quest. He literally gamifies things to the point of video game, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, with RPGs, oftentimes there's a choice. There's also those games where it's literally like, remember Goosebumps back in the day? They made those books where it's like, choose option A or option B, right? And you create a different story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Based on the decisions that you make.
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the things that I harp on in the first book is that a lot of times we think about the big decisions being like, obviously the big decisions are big decisions that create a different consequence. And yet we also somewhat dismiss all of the micro decisions, all the even nano decisions on like, when am I getting up to wake up today?
Yeah, exactly.
Do I go on YouTube or do I do some yoga or
exactly,
all those things, and then what does that cultivate in regards to the consequence that I end up making later?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
It's like somebody might look at me, which you just did, and be like, "Oh, well, how'd you get 100 million views? Or how'd you become this speaker? How'd you get your TED talk?" It's like, cool, great, amazing.
Yeah.
But you might see the result of the big decisions, but you have no idea about the many micro decisions on a daily basis that allowed that to even happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And the discipline, right?
Yeah.
And one of the key components of discipline is that you are always sacrificing something in order to gain something else.
Yes.
Right? A no is a yes to something, a yes is a no to something.
Yep.
And so I guess a question for you, I mean, you're my fucking coach, but like a question for you, but also for the audience is like an answer that would be, and I think the obvious answer is like, do you fucking want it bad enough or not? But like truly when we as people are faced with being in the space of not wanting to do the thing, knowing that like, this is a better choice, but what do you do in those moments to make the better choice?
I will start by saying I don't think that I am the best person to give advice in this situation because I find that as much as I care about little Imari and doing this for little Imari, there are times where I ruthlessly silence taking care of him because I'm like, I have to become who you need. So there, like when you ask, well, how do you say, in the micro moments to make the right decision? It's like, I actually feel like I do that too much. I feel like, I remember my coach, like, I go on runs, as you probably imagine. He was talking about being cut. I go on runs, right? And I gas myself. I like push the gas pedal to the floor. And every time I finish a run, I'm like, like breathing. And it's not even like, oh yeah, I'm so proud of myself for doing it. I'm like, that was the only option. We only do our best, right? And I think that there's obviously benefits to that. And I think that there's obviously not benefits to that. Yeah. And I remember when I started working with a new coach, he talked about this idea of like having compassion for myself and not always having the knob at 10. Yeah. And I remember after our first session, I went on a run and like I was running at like an 80%. And like there was a voice inside of me that was like, run. What are you? This is not what we do. We break the meter. Right. Run harder. Right. And I had to like talk to myself like, I know that might be the quote unquote right decision, the virtuous decision, the whatever decision. I was like, but we're practicing something new right now.
Leave me alone, Goggins.
Literally, like, bro, so wild that you say that because then I texted my coach afterwards. I was like, yeah, I tried to do the thing. He's like, yeah, Mari, not every day needs to be a Goggins day. Right. Right. Yeah. And it's hard for me to accept that. So I think that's why it's hard for me to like give advice to people that doesn't just sound like, fucking do it.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I honor your humility in not wanting to be I have the perfect solution for you, you know, like
kill yourself.
The LA, holy shit. But like truly not being the LA guru and being able to, and I would not only just like expect that, I just know that you are that guy, which is why like,
thank you.
This is why also like you be my coach. Anyway, but truly like exactly what you said was perfect because I think there's a fine line between going crazy hard, especially when I can speak for myself, when you're an individual who gets so lit up and so fired up that it's like, we got to go now. And then it's like, we also got to wake up for work in the morning. I got lit at like 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Like, what is an efficient way to get lit so that this has longevity, so that this has a trajectory that can be seen out rather than me just feel it in the moment and be like, oh, like, what if sometimes it is going Goggins? What if it's doing the opposite?
Yeah.
What if it is like you feel like you need to do it all right now and then it's like maybe you get sick, maybe you get injured, maybe whatever else happens. How can we give ourselves grace, give ourselves compassion? Also not let that become a habit and or like an escape route, right?
Yes, exactly. Because like that's the actual trick. That's the actual question, right? It's like everybody goes to podcasts, everybody goes to, you know, whatever the latest self-help thing. And they're like, tell me what the answer is. Tell me what I need to do. Right. And it's like, well, the answer will be different for you based on your previous habits that you're coming in with.
So true.
Right?
Yeah.
If you already lean into coming up with excuses, if you already lean into like, you know, saying, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, blah, 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 whatever. Yeah, maybe you should practice some Goggins.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
Like next time you don't feel like doing it, go fucking do it.
Yeah.
Get up.
Yeah.
And like, that's exactly what you need. You need a Goggins.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And on the other side, if you're the person who's like always on, always Goggins, it's like you need to learn how to practice to not do that.
Yeah, right.
You need to practice, you know, instead of having a Goggins on your shoulder, you need to have one of these, you know, white hippie girls being like, no, it's okay. Take time for yourself. Yeah. You need.
I don't know about that.
You
but
need Phoenix.
maybe what's his name? What's that guy's name? The meditation teacher. Anyways, yes.
Eckhart Tolle?
Yeah, Eckhart Tolle. Yeah. There we go. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
I've had him over one of those yoga girls, but yeah.
If you're the person who is always going hard, you need some Eckhart Tolle. If you're the person who's always finding excuses, always laying around, always fucking smoking weed, playing video games, and finding another excuse,
100%.
get a Goggins.
Yeah.
Get yourself a Goggins. And I feel like that's why, like, when it comes to, like, for me, when I'm coaching, like, I'm applying it differently for every person. Like, if I just did, like, a blanket, like, all right, everybody, you just got to be this, and everybody's like, that won't work. That won't work because everybody's a different person. There's some people who like, there are people I've had in the past who need some Goggins. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, like, you know, people pay me money, obviously, to coach. It's what I do for a living. And I've told people, like, I am not going to accept your money anymore because this is a waste of my time. Because every single week you show up and you don't have the thing done. I'm tired of it. I'm not here for your money. I'm here to watch you transform. And you're wasting both of our times and both of our monies, right? So go, get out, right? And then there's some people like yourself, like who jujitsuing and fucking like doing the thing and like doing the Airbnb and doing the podcast and you're like, oh, fuck, I need to go another level harder. I'm like, yo, a breath. A breath would be amazing right now. Yeah. So it depends on the person.
You know, for one, I have ultimate respect for that in the sense that if it does not align with you once again, then you don't want to have anything to do with it. And it's interesting how in those situations as well, like, an individual without integrity obviously would hold on to that client for the sake of money.
Yeah.
But also in doing so, like for some individuals, similar to how I've talked about, like, you know, the men's work group I've been a part of, like a big healing point for a lot of men, like they get healed there and then they get super tight into the group and then they realize that they're kind of being taken advantage of. And then the only way to heal the new wound is to actually step away. In this similar circumstance, for the individual who is not owning their stuff, to actually be left by you, the person who can help them, is actually such medicine for them that if you were not to do that otherwise, you'd be doing a disservice
and
to
just
them
enabling
on
more
their
bullshit.
path. So you'd actually, through that negligence, it's a form of violence, you know, in you doing that. So you choosing to do that is integrous in multitudes of ways.
There's a question to ask of like, how how am I benefiting from my lack of integrity? Right? It's like, oh, my integrity would say, stop working with this person so they can get the fucking medicine that they need. But they're paying me.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's like, oh, well, like, I know this woman is not the mother of my children, but like, sex is good. It's like,
yeah. Yeah.
All right, well.
Yeah.
What is the long-term benefit, or what is the long-term cost?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And when we are engaging with individuals, you know, whether they're family, friend, you know, romantic, whatever, we're not always just exchanging, like, well, especially if it's family and stuff like that, you're not necessarily exchanging money with them, with a client, but you are exchanging energy in every single, you know, transmission and interaction with people. And so it's like, there is a balance, checks and balance of what we are getting from people. And I would imagine, I haven't been in that space yet, but I would imagine that working with an individual where you're trying to help them and they are not choosing to receive that help, in a way, that's vampiric of them as well. And so it's
100%.
like you taking that on. It's like, I'm literally, it's almost like a BDSM type of thing where you're like, basically, this guy's making me have to shame him and he's paying me and he's maybe
liking it.
Yeah. Maybe
weird.
he's getting off on it. I don't know. Am I willing? Is that what I'm here to do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe you are. I mean, I don't know what you're into.
I think that they're...
No judgment.
Everybody's got their thing, bro. I think that there are people who use the fact that they have a coach as a excuse to not actually do any work. Oh, no, I got a coach, man. Yeah. And then it's kind of like a social symbol to be like, oh, look how much I care about myself. It's like, oh, I got a therapist. You know, it's like, all the people, like, as soon as like mental health became like a thing and everybody's like, oh, I was talking to my therapist, like mental health matters and da-da-da-da. It's like, okay, cool, my guy, but you haven't changed in like 7 years since I've known you.
Yeah.
And 7 of those years you had a therapist.
Right.
And so it seems like you're just using it as like a black hole to like vent and regurgitate the same fucking problems. Like, let me see some actionable change.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, I, as a coach, I think the best way for me to measure my success is based on the results of the people that I work with.
Yeah.
Because that's undeniable.
Yeah.
Like, cool. We are sitting here at a table with cameras looking at us, mics, recording, right? This wasn't in existence 9 months ago.
No.
So it's like, I'm like, okay, cool. At least we're making progress.
Yeah.
Like, otherwise it's just, it's a circle jerk, bro.
Yeah, truly.
Oh my God, I'm good on circle jerks.
No, I truly, and you know, once again, I think that comes with a certain level of like denying cowardice. It comes with a certain level of accountability and ownership of like, I can't be blind. Like, there's some people who are just, they're so in depth into the blindness that it's so easy to just stay in it.
Of course.
And
it's comfortable as hell.
yeah, and I assume that people will be like that. I'm not saying like shaming them for being that like that. That's just like how most of society's been bred. Yeah. And once you're there, it doesn't sit with you. It's hard to let something that is unjust, non-integrous, that just, you know, for a fact is not right, to keep going with it. It's like, it'll eat you up. It'll create sickness. It will create dis-ease. You won't be at ease about it. And so, and when you talk about the therapy thing, it's like, when I go to therapy, I'm like processing myself while also sharing. And she's kind of like, this is different. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, I get that, you know, I'm seeing myself, you know, I'm witnessing myself do this. And like, I know that I'm doing this and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what are your thoughts? You know?
And she's like, you just did all the work for me.
Kind of. But no, but she also gives me a lot of tips too. But I can understand how in a therapy setting, people are paying for the ability to vent, paying for the ability to be heard. A coaching situation is the intention at least, right, is to have the accountability to do the things, as well as to also have the guidance to do the things. And you have skin in the game.
Exactly.
So that you can actually put yourself in a space where you can't just take this shit for granted.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Some people just have, you know, disposable income to the point where, like, I'll have a coach because it makes me feel good and it is a stylish thing. But for some people, they give it their all.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, I'm in that situation where it's like, technically there's a lot of other things I could or should be paying for, and yet this is paramount, because if I don't do it, I know myself well enough for the past 35 years, or at least the past like 12 years of adult life that I've been an entrepreneur, that I will get sidetracked. You've seen it. Okay. Imari has seen me spin so many times into a space of overthinking, being overly critical, not knowing, being in self-doubt, being in doubt of the actual thing, perfectionism, all the stuff. And there's some individuals who are creatives, and that's why I love that you're a creative coach. There are so many creative people, and some of them are my friends, and they've asked me, like, because I used to be financial advisor and crypto guy, and they're like, what should I invest in? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, get a coach. Like, because you're the greatest asset, and also, like, you'll make so much more money than you will than in the S&P 500 or in an altcoin or in Bitcoin or whatever, if you can get out of your own way and get clarity and keep accountability. Because what do you live in this life for? You know, what's that money even for at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're creative.
I would assume that most people have goals. I would hope so.
Hope so.
Like, for the love of being alive. Yeah. I hope you have a fucking goal. I hope you have something you're building towards.
Right.
And for people who have goals, if everybody has goals, I think the question is like, okay, well, if I never actually go after that, if I never actually do it, how will I feel? Right. What's the cost? Right. And my desire is that you have a goal where you're like, this is non-negotiable. Even if I'm not going to accomplish it, I'm going to go after it.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm pretty sure me and you had this conversation during one of our coaching sessions, but like, I remember when I was like, I'm going to be a public speaker. Yeah. I was off in Joshua Tree, I think I told you, and I was just like, it's like something is needing to shift, something needs to grow, something needs to build. And then I was like, that's it. I'm going to be a public speaker. That was the goal. Cool. Great. Given my TED Talk. Yeah. Spoke at Harvard, spoke at Google, spoke, right? And still doing it. Going to be doing it in a couple of weeks again, right? So most people who don't have, to be honest, the demons chasing them, that I have, right? Most people, if they don't have those demons holding them accountable, if they don't have anybody holding them accountable, it's just going to be another goal. It's going to be another dream. Right. It's going to be more talk. Yeah. I'm just like, cool. If those dreams actually matter to you, find out some way to hold yourself accountable.
When you say demons chasing you, what do you mean?
What we were talking about before when we were talking about like coming up as a kid, and I was like, I'm going to make this worth it. Oh, right. Because it was born of hell. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And it's like the demons are like, make it worth it. Make it worth it. Yeah. Right? So.
Got you. And so, yes. Okay. So I get what you're saying there. Yeah. And yeah, you know, one of the things that I talk about in here is like the way that we can perceive things is like either everything's a blessing or everything's a curse. Right. Yep. You don't see God in all, you won't see God at all. And in the Bible, the angels do some pretty kind of fucked up shit as well. And so it's like, when you say demons chasing you, is it like demons, angels? You know, either way, like what you're doing is you're taking what's there as a blessing, as gold, and using it to transmute and alchemize it into what you want and towards your prosperity and towards what is important to you. Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. And outside of you choosing to go forward and do what you've done. We know the story of the pivotal moment of how you owned your story and like realized like, oh shit, I'm creating this, you know, through you know the incident you shared earlier. How have you chosen, even at that young age, through the turmoil that you have endured and how broken your heart had become? What was it just as simple as saying this isn't going to be for nothing, and that's how you were able to heal it? Was it a quantum shift? For some people, I feel like they're like, oh, I have a lot of work to do on this. And it becomes this carrot in front of a horse, right?
Yeah. I would say that deciding I'm going to make something of this did not heal it. It's like being like getting a cancer diagnosis and you being like, this ain't gonna knock me out. Right. I'm going to find whatever modality, whatever doctor, I'm going to search the ends of the earth until I find a cure for this thing. The desire to do that doesn't heal the cancer. Right. But it gives you a fucking path. to find some fucking healing. Yeah?
Yeah.
So I think that deciding that put me on a path towards at least having a direction. Because otherwise I would have just circling around the pain, circling around the suffering. It's like, bro, I could easily sit here for hours and tell you stories about my life that make you feel bad for me. I could.
Yeah.
I've got the tales.
Yeah.
Amazing storytelling. I could do that.
Yeah, that's your thing.
And I'm also like, I'm not trying to do that for the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah. Doesn't fill you up.
What's the point of somebody's traumatic story? Really? Honestly, what's the point of the story unless on the other side they're like, and then I did that.
Right.
And then I became this.
Right.
We give a fuck about the fact that Michael Jordan got cut from his high school team because then he went to become Michael Jordan.
Right. Yeah.
If he was the guy who got cut from his high school team, which I've experienced, that sucks and very sad. Very sad.
Yeah.
And if that's the end of the story, then it's like, well, why are we talking about the fact that you got cut from your JV varsity? Like, who cares?
Yeah. There's no arc.
There's no arc.
Yeah.
So if everybody listening to me is going to experience the beginning of an arc, which is pain and suffering and trauma,
right,
turn it into a story, my guy.
Yeah.
And I promise you that will give you purpose, that will give you direction, that will help you find people who are aligned with you, that will help you feel understood. Like, otherwise, you will sit here and you will suffer.
Yeah.
And the best thing you will do is distract yourself from how much you're suffering. And you'll just distract yourself with the latest dopamine hit, and you're just fucking like, and you'll just distract yourself. Great, fine, fantastic, great. And then one day you will die.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that terrible story.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
So if you are going to experience pain, feel it, acknowledge it. Yes, it fucking sucks. You probably didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
And then the next question is, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it has no purpose.
Do you want more water?
No. We'll get you for it.
Good.
That last strip was satisfying.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, though. And yeah, I love that you had mentioned that it didn't heal it, but you chose where to direct it. Because there will be a lot of people who listen to this podcast and listen to a lot of self-help podcasts. And a lot of times, like, even with this, I'm wondering, like, am I just preaching to the choir? And then I feel like there's 3 lanes, right? Or maybe 4. There's the people who absolutely get it, who are like, this makes me feel like I'm not fucking insane. Then there are people who are on the precipice that are like, wait, maybe my friends aren't right. And this is, I've been feeling more resonant with this.
Yeah.
Then there are people who think that what we're saying is what they're doing, and they're fucking doing the opposite.
Incorrect.
And then there are the people who completely just are like, I don't want to even hear this, or, whatever.
Dismiss it, whatever, yeah.
And so I guess my goal is always to be as efficient and accurate towards affecting the individuals who don't get it yet or are on the precipice. And maybe the precipice people are the only ones who will get it. And that's something that I'm coming to terms with. But I love that you had said that it does not heal it. Because with a lot of these things, and I wrote about it in the first book as well, in that the victim will always perceive the embodied one, the heroic, the one who has risen above, as someone who speaks from a place of higher up, like, authority, or someone who's belittling the person. And it's really, what I've likened it to is, it's like you're in knee-deep water, and one person is face down, like drowning with their head underwater, and the other person's like, I'm just telling you to stand up.
Just stand up, my guy.
Like, I'm no better than you. You're putting yourself there.
Yeah, and the only reason I'm telling you to stand up is because I believe you can stand up.
And I love you. At a core level, like, I care about you.
Yeah. Like,
you're too worthy, and you're too valuable to be playing like that.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Yeah.
It's like, obviously they would never know, but the people that I don't try to share this information with, it's probably because I don't give a fuck about you. Or because I don't believe in you.
Right.
And it's like, it takes a lot for me to not believe in somebody. Because I believe that we are all much more capable than we are even halfway unlocked. Right. So if I get to the point where I'm just like, all right, man, whatever. Yeah. It's either because I truly just don't care about you, which is unfortunate. Yeah. Or it's like, something about you makes me feel like, you know what? Yeah. he wasn't put here to be something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, just like we talk about, like, is it angels or demons? Like, what's the blessing coming from? Like, you choosing to do that and being like, you know, I don't give a fuck about you, can be the blessing that person needs.
Exactly.
You know, like, that could be the medicine for them to be like, wait, this beautiful shining light rejected me. Wow, holy shit, I've never had the confrontation like this because I've been maybe coddled my whole life. And everyone's talked me up, and this person doesn't see me. Oh, I could be like, fuck him, blah, blah. And I could hold that resentment for years. Until I finally confront in either a near-death experience, or maybe I take too much drugs and I get like a near-death experience, or whatever the fuck it is. Yeah. And then I'm like, yo, I wasn't willing to show up. Oh.
Yeah, and just a quick note on near-death experiences, because I know it's kind of how we started the whole conversation. I say this, and I really wish people like got it. It's like, there are millions of near-death experiences every day. Most people die.
Yeah.
So it's like, yo, we could have some amazing revelations. I almost died and I started to realize things about myself. It's like, do you really want to wait until that point? Because you might not make it out.
That's true.
It might not be a near-death experience. It might just be a death experience.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you don't want to be like where I was at, which is like, I think this is about to be a death experience, and being like, fuck.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
I fucked that one up. So, you know, I don't know, man. If you need to go take 6 grams of shrooms to fucking realize that you need to get your shit together, then it's like,
what a blessing to have those tools.
Yeah, thank
where you
goodness,
can get brought to that point safely.
Exactly. Yeah, because you're
not gonna overdose on shrooms.
You don't always want to find out with a gangbanger.
Yeah, no, you don't. You don't.
It might be uncomfortable on shrooms, but I can promise you, it's probably safer.
It's gonna be uncomfortable, and that's kind of the point, right?
That's exactly how we got there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's something that comes up when you're talking about this. It was something that one of the other guests had stated, which is that, I think it was Yaya, that we don't necessarily heal or get rid of our trauma. What we do is we make enough space to hold it and hold more of ourselves, right?
Excellent.
Yeah. And so tying that all together, I feel like that's really relative as well, and kind of puts it in perspective, because it is a cultivation of who we are, right? Like, whenever I meet someone, I'm always like, what makes an Imari? What makes a Sean, right? Because like, especially if you're interesting.
Yeah.
If you're not interesting, it's like, I can see you're basically an amalgamation of the cartoons you watch, smoking weed, and like popular culture.
Yeah, it's like I get it. You know? I've seen this before.
Yeah, but like, oh, you're a unique individial.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Right? Because that's not a one-way street. You know, it's not like, oh, well, I went to public school and I did, you know? It's like, shit happened.
Yeah. How did we end up with this?
Yeah. What a unique, you know, we only have so many colors that we see. Like, when I talk about it, maybe it sounds a little corny and stupid, but I really feel like energetically, like, you know, people talk about auras. Oh, I'm a red aura, I'm a pink aura. Like, I truly feel like the spirit, the soul, and how it ends up cultivating in this lifetime ends up being like its own specific color, and or just like being, like, whether that color is like all these different variations of what it could be. Even when we say color, like, that's a term that falls short.
What color do you think your aura is?
No clue. And if that's the thing, to have it only be one color, not have it be amorphous and consistently like a one that is like a, maybe it also has like this pearlescentness to it. And maybe it's a bluish purple, whatever it is. But the point being is that we're able to be cultivated into a richness, right? Or not. Or we could be the blanketed, you know, people that are being concocted through popular culture and the narrative of, you know, what's spun today.
It's so interesting. I would have said, like, you know, we talk about colors. It's kind of like saying, like, what kind of Pokemon am I? Like, what Hogwarts class? And I feel like you got green aura.
Oh, nice. Okay, I'm with it.
Yeah,
that's hard. Anahata.
Yeah,
chakra.
I'm like, I feel like that's.
I like green.
The vibe.
What
color you see in me? Don't say mustard, just because I got the mustard shirt on.
Yeah, no, I'd say red.
Huh.
Yeah.
Why? Like passion and energy?
Yeah, I'd say like red and white. Yeah.
Interesting. My favorite color growing up was red. Scarlet, actually.
I knew it. Yeah, with some glitter in it. Yeah, man. It's a fun thing to think about. I mean, I don't know. At the end of the day, I feel like we're consistently shifting, and it's just so. It makes this life so much more enriched, like we're amongst all these animals, we're amongst all these beings who just operate on this specific plane of like their ancestry and stuff like that. And we've been given the gift through this amazing life that we're living in this century where we're at right now to cultivate ourselves to this space where we're really starting to tap into the level of the Godhead, into the space of the divinity, into the space of like, wow, we are the creators, you know, tapping into that creative consciousness. And to be on truly like the cutting edge in this, you know, space with technology and everything like that, I feel blessed because yes, there are these individuals who are like, I don't give a fuck about you. And yet also, you know, the ones that you do get to help. Like I'm honored to be able to be blessed with that and to be working with you and to continue growing. Cause like my buddy said the other day, you know, I was telling him like, yo, I've been feeling this way or that way. He's like, well, stop feeling that way. Cause we got a lot of work to do, you know? Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like your buddy. I mean, I know some people see that as like, you're dismissing the pain. It's like,
no, it wasn't like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But but you know, some people do that.
Totally.
Yeah. And it's
but
just
more like back on mission.
Yeah. It's the fucking mission, baby.
Yeah.
And it's like actually I was actually talking to a friend about this literally before I came here.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody lives in a romance.
Absolutely.
Like a lot of times with women, it's like the romance is like, I'm going to be the one chosen and I'm the princess in the castle and he's so in love with me and I became this doted after wonderful loving wife, right? Yeah. And like that's like the story and like the juice of it is like the love and the romance, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times with guys, masculine energy, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it's like the romance is like I'm the one. Yeah. The hero's journey.
100%. The hero. I solved the problems.
I'm the fucking hero. I'm here to take, like, I have been born to fulfill this destiny.
Yeah.
And I don't think that women feel that very often. Like, I'm going to fulfill this destiny to shape the cosmos. But I feel like, personally speaking as a man, like, I that's what I feel. Yeah. And I feel like when I'm in line with that, is when I feel my best.
Yeah.
When I'm like, there it is. That's the mission. That's the goal. Right. Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually when I feel the best.
Yeah.
So, like, if that's when we feel the best, give that to people.
Yeah.
Like, don't let them just wallow in the suffering and the nonsense and the back and the forth. Give them a direction, a vision. Go after it. Get it done. Watch how fucking powerful you are. What could be more satisfying?
I mean, completely agreed. I mean, for one, if we are denying our purpose, if we're denying, like a lot of people say, like, and that's one of the things you do is like you get lit up on helping people find their purpose. For me, at least, when it comes to purpose, it's like the thing that if I don't do, I will regret.
Yes.
And
exactly.
For some people, I feel like that comes to a certain level of like confronting what their values are, who and what they are. And exactly. And so what do you do? For one thing I want to mention too, because I keep forgetting it. When you're talking right now, I haven't really thought about it the whole time that we've been like working together.
Yeah.
Two things I want to talk about is how you help people find their purpose and what the formula is for that, if there is one. And then also, you went to military school. And there's certain things that come up when I'm seeing you like this. Like, I know I'm seeing you look like a creative director right now. Like, you got the cap, he got the dreads and everything like that. But when you go into things,
I'm
also
in the military right now.
but I literally see you being in uniform and in the military when you're saying things right now at certain points in time. And not in an unhealthy, like, fuck you, little, maggot, I said that at the same time. You know what I mean? But coming at it from there is a certain level of coming at space from that. It's a commanding
incisive,
presence.
Clear, direct. Yes.
And it's not a command like, hey, you fucker, do this thing. It's commanding presence.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that I found as well and it's one of the things we've tried working on is that when I'm trying to deliver a message sometimes, it's like, this just is, and the emotion isn't really fully there because it's more of like, I'm commanding your presence right now to come online because this is who you are.
Yeah, yeah.
And yet, sometimes you gotta give that spoonful of sugar, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, there's stuff there.
That's a really interesting point. Do you want to jump into that first, or you want to jump into the first thing first?
Whatever's alive for you. Yeah.
I mean, I'll just answer the purpose thing because I think it's very like finding purpose, but I'm like, it's pretty quick. Honestly, when you say, oh, Imari helps people find their purpose, I'm like, nah, not really. I'm like, most people know. I'm giving them permission to fucking go after it. Like a lot of people just need somebody that either they're inspired by or they feel connected to or who's done it themselves to just be like, yo, go do it.
True. Yeah.
Like, think about how many more people would be going after their dreams if when they're growing up, their parents are like, go. I'm behind you.
That's so fucking true, dude.
Right?
That's 100%
so
true.
Most people, that's all they're waiting for.
And they don't have that figure.
Exactly. They don't have somebody that's like, I believe in you.
Yeah.
I will show up for you. Whatever you fucking need. I will pick you up when you're down. I will provide you with as many connections and networks and resources and opportunities as I can.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
Most people just are at the top of the slide in the playground like, Mom, is it okay if I go down?
The top of the slide,
like,
dude.
Is it okay? Versus mom is like at the bottom side, like, come on.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
Like, let's go.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like I have different workshops and different frameworks that I have deployed for hundreds, if not thousands of people to help them find their purpose. And honestly, bro, after running it with hundreds and thousands of people, it's not many times that I've run these protocols or done these coaching with people and people are like, oh my God, I never realized I wanted to be a painter. It's like, you did.
Yeah.
Yes, of course you did. Right. And maybe I'll refine it. I'll be like, oh, okay, well, you are a painter who really wants to paint stuff for the digital age, or you know what I'm saying? Like maybe like refine it a little bit, but the core, I'm not giving people purpose. I'm giving people permission to follow their purpose.
I love that.
We recorded that. That was fire.
The thing I love about what you said too is that you're not pulling something out of them or helping them to concoct something. You're giving them once again the allowance to take up space in the healthiest ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yo,
yeah,
I think you can.
Yeah.
I believe you can. I can see it in you. Right. And a lot I know for myself personally, if I had that growing up, my life would look different. And I'm grateful for, the way my life turned out. But there's also other versions that if I had somebody who was my Imari at that time, we'd be doing different things and it'd be much easier. Yeah.
Just something to touch on there too, before we get into the military thing.
Yep.
As someone who, let's not. All right. I won't. This is like double-sided because I have been given the opportunity with my family to fail. I've been given the freedom to fail, right? Now, at the same time, I show up real heavy for my family, as you know.
Yeah, I know.
And so it's like, I could have burnt that bridge. I could have been like, fuck you, I'm doing my own thing. I show up for them like as much as I possibly can.
Yes, you do.
And even still, like, I have been given, like, I did AP Art Studio and art history in high school. I went to school for art. Albeit college back then was like 2G. I went to Cal State. That shit was cheap as fuck. Now I found out like how much some people pay for college and a bachelor's. I'm like, that's insane, But I ended up stopping that, going into comm, right? Out of that, became a hippie. And, I was vegan 10 years. I did all sorts of businesses, all sorts of jobs and all this stuff. And had been given the opportunity to fail. And a lot of things didn't work out. They were never like, hey, I want to get you set up with this business coach. I want to get you, this type of help. They were like, hey, we're going to support you, let you do what you're doing. We still love you. We're not going to like shame you and be like, oh, you got to be a doctor too. Because they were already dentists and they were like, this shit ain't,
it's not a wall, it's cooked up to be,
and it was like, hey, you want financial freedom, you're going to have to do something bigger. And that's what I wanted. And yet, even in the midst of having that sort of support, would still find myself in a space of self-doubt, confusion, also making the wrong decisions because I didn't have like an accurate like business plan, all the things. So all that to say that there's also a place where having support, but potentially maybe not the right support or I won't say the right support, but some of the best things that because Mark Zuckerberg talked about it, like give yourself the freedom to fail. And I don't like Mark Zuckerberg, but that was a good thing to say, because he's like, I failed so many times before. All these great people fail a lot before they have something happen. And it's like the thing that I've become grateful for is that my family gave me the opportunity and the freedom to fail. And I had somewhat of a safety net in them when I fucking lost all my shit, that they would be there to like support me.
Yeah.
And yet that is not necessarily the same as having a coach and someone who does what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful point. Yeah. There's different levels.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's the level of like, I'm going to shame you for going after your goals, which we know is like not supportive.
Not helpful. Yeah.
There's, I support your goals. Go for it.
Yeah.
Go do it.
Yeah.
And then there's, I'm going to hold you accountable. What are we doing tomorrow?
Right.
Yo, you can do better. I promise you can do better than that.
Yeah.
Yo, let's get you this trainer. Yo, let's get, like, that's different.
So different.
That's
so
different. There's shame, there's support, and then there's something beyond that. It's like accountability.
Just like that's different than a therapist as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So like,
one's more of a passive role and one is an active role.
Active role. It's like, calling, yo, what do we do today?
Yeah.
Yo, you hit the thing? Cool. What are we doing tomorrow? Like, it's just different, my guy. It's like, it's the difference between an NBA player has somebody in the audience being like, go LeBron, I believe in you, woohoo! Versus the coach on the sideline, like Bron, turn left. Hey, Bron, you got somebody on your back. Hey, Bron, yo, we can't keep eating this fucking yogurt, man. It's not good for you. We gotta make sure we get enough energy right here. Like, hey, bro, tomorrow we got training at 6 a.m.
Right.
That's different than the person in the stands with a sign that says, go Sean.
Yeah.
And it's not because that person is wrong, but it's just different.
It's so true. Like, something that comes up for me is that there's a difference between someone loving you and wanting you to be happy and wanting you to succeed. And there's a difference between someone choosing to believe in what you're wanting to fulfill and working with you to get that made.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very big
and
difference.
Do it. And in that, there's going to be a certain level of like confronting accuracy.
Of course.
Yeah.
There's not really a lot of like confronting when it comes to just support.
No. Yeah. And a big thing for me the whole time, which is why I never had a coach this entire time and stuff like that, was also like the pride component where it's like, oh man, I don't have the money for this. Or I don't have the money for X, Y, and Z. Why should I,
put money towards coaching?
Right. Or like, I can't justify that yet. It was like, for me, I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the pod, but for me, it was like, I always wanted a coach, right? And I always wanted this and that and everything. But I was like, well, I don't have the money to justify doing that now. So I got to make enough money so that I can then pay for the thing. But it's like, I'd already have success at that point. But what if I need the coach and these other things in order to become successful?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, back to the military thing. Like, you went to military school and you're also a freaking director, like a creative director, producer of media, and you're such an amazing storyteller. Like your hat, I just realized, says daddy.
Yes,
it should say storytelling daddy,
Probably a little bit more appropriate.
Yeah. But truly, like, your ability, like, sometimes, just to give you guys a little insight, sometimes I say, we're trying to talk about what I'm gonna talk about or say or whatever it is, and Imari's like, what if you did something like this? No. He says some poetic ass shit, and he says it like a storyteller, like everyone gather around the campfire. And I'm like, damn, I just say this shit super intellectually. And so what's interesting is that you have that. And if someone were to meet you and know you, especially if they see you contact dancing all sweaty with all these like, Caucasian yoga girls over here, LA, they'd be like, oh, this dude never went to military school. And then you also come with it, especially when you get fired up. Once again, if you like are doing this work or they see you at a keynote, talk or something like that, it's like, oh, this guy has assertion on a different level and he has passion on a different level, but the way that he delivers is not without heart, but it comes with this space of commanding that presence. And so I guess my question is, and we had never talked about this before, is that like you went to military school, how did that affect you and how did that cultivate you into who you are as well? And have you
amazing question, brother.
Yeah.
Amazing question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that on a podcast, so thank you for that. Astute inquiry. So I'll tell you a story. First and foremost, it's probably obvious, but I'm going to make sure it's very clear. I hated military school.
Got it.
I hated it. I hate that I got sent there without my consent. I hate that I wasn't allowed to leave. I hate that a year and a half of my life was dedicated to being at that academy. No offense to the school itself, it's just not what a 7th grade kid wants to do with his life.
I was in 7th grade.
7th grade.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah. And I remember I graduated 8th grade, and I was leaving the campus with my dad. And I remember being in the car watching, the school kind of like go off in the distance. And I told him, I never want to see this place again. I am committed to never in my life ever returning to this place. And my dad, we've cleared this since then, but he said something that was very painful. He's like, oh, but it probably it taught you discipline, and you got what you needed out of it. And it's not that I disagree. Like, I think part of the reason why I'm more disciplined than a lot of people is because I was put in a military school when I was in 7th grade, right? And I remember turning to him and saying, no matter what I got out of this, what I had to pay for that was not worth the cost. Hating my life for a year and a half, discipline's amazing, fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was being at that school was the first time I ever considered killing myself. So it's like, if I had killed myself, would we say, well, he was learning discipline. At least he got discipline out of it. It's like, okay, but what's the fucking cost?
Yeah.
Like, what's the fucking cost of these things?
Yeah.
It's like back to our conversation about, the gangbanger shooting thing. It's like, okay, cool. Mari learned to take ownership of his life after that. It's like, but that was very painful experience.
Yeah.
Like, it came at a cost.
Right.
And I just don't want people to have to pay such difficult, painful, deep costs in order to get richer, better value out of life. Yeah. I don't want everybody to have a near-death experience. I don't want you to have to get sent to military school in order to have discipline. Yeah. Right. So, this is probably for some future technology that delves into your brain and how it's made to determine, to be like, oh, well, is military school what made Imari, more assertive than, the average person, or more disciplined than the average person? It's like, maybe, probably. Yeah. But it's also like, I would be remiss to admit that without also saying, like, there is part of me that wishes I didn't have to pay the cost that I paid in order to get it.
Yeah.
So.
I understand that. I definitely understand that.
Bro, we got hella IG clips off this thing, bro. We popping,
Of course.
We got seasons of IG clips, bro.
That's to be expected. But you said you don't want people to have to pay this price. You don't want people to have to go through that. And I'd say, and any person with a heart would want that. And I guess the question is, at least from what I've experienced, is it even possible to? And,
very good question.
Yeah, and for me, at least, every generation is different, right? Every generation looks, it's like, oh, we did things differently, blah, blah. It's very, very unique and iconic, each different generation. And our generation is in this space where we've seen the Renaissance come forward from the 70s, and we had our own thing, and now we're doing this stuff. Like, this type of stuff is groundbreaking in itself, right? Yeah. And at least for me, one of my goals is to be able to bring forth certain standards of operating, certain standards of understanding of each other, and how to have respect for each other, and in respect to each other's worth, and each other's capacity, capability, and responsibility that comes with that, and to be able to bring forth tools in regards to communication, conflict resolution, ownership of story and projection, and all these things, especially in the sense of, like, foundationally with children, so that they can not only live better and operate better, but we can learn from them, because we're the ones who actually are kind of like burdened with how we've been raised, and basically with narratives and thought processes that
we got to undo.
A lot to undo.
Yeah.
And so I can see that, and that is the goal for that younger generation, to potentially not have to incur all this stuff. But for those of us who have incurred this mindset and these the disassociation of values and confrontation, everything like that. Can we even get there without paying the price? You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, man. And it might be one of those like just unfortunate realities of being human where it's like, you're not going to learn the lesson unless you have to learn the lesson.
Yeah.
You're not going to learn the lesson unless you have a reason to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks, right? It sucks. And I wish that wasn't the case. But it's like a lot of people aren't going to get rid of their addiction to alcohol until they, you know, get in an accident and accidentally kill somebody, right? A lot of people are not going to, you know.
Or it could be a positive thing, like they have a child. And they're like, oh.
Yeah.
I can't
good point.
fucking.
It doesn't have to be all depressing. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think the nicest...
Something has to bring on the shift.
Yeah, I think the nicest thing that I could ever wish upon somebody is that the motivation and the reason and the purpose for you to learn your lessons is something as positive as having a child, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the lessons that I have learned and implemented in my life were not the result of something positive like having a child, right? It's the result of
fucked up shit.
Suffering.
Struggle.
Yeah. So you can learn from the suffering of human experience, or you can learn from the glory of what the human experience could be. You know? And honestly, man, I think it's 9 times out of 10 it's going to be the suffering. just to be real, bro. It's like,
no, I mean, I agree. It's kind of what, you know.
Yeah, like
that's the challenge in it too.
Yeah, like people don't have kids every day.
No. And people, 100%. And there's a certain level of, I feel like in this life, you know, we are given the opportunity once again to have faith, right? Whatever that faith is. But I think at a fundamental level, whether you want to, however we want to perceive God or the divine parent or whatever, at just like a root level, if we're able to have faith that good things will come regardless of the hardships that we experience, that faith enough can bring us through and be able to receive the blessing that will come after the tragedy. Right?
Yes. Yeah. You want to talk about like, you know, this has been psychologically unproven, but if we were going to go with the idea that like you only use 10% of your brain, right? 10% of your potential. Yeah. It's like the door between the 10% and the 90% is like faith. Like faith will unlock a new part of you that you will go to depths that you did not think that you could go to. Yeah. Right? You're like, oh, I don't think that like I can start my own business. Yeah. If you have faith and you're like, God put me on this planet to make this business. Yeah. Watch how many doors you will knock down. Yeah. Watch how many conversations you'll have. Watch how many late nights you'll stay up. And watch what the fuck you will do.
Bro. Wow. Yes. And you know what comes up for me when you say that? When we talk about faith, right? Like, obviously, we talked about psychedelics a little bit earlier. But, like, some people are just like, fuck it, let's do psychedelics because I just don't give a fuck about life. There are other people who have such a control over life that to actually consider doing psychedelics takes a level of faith. The thing that I can't stand is someone who's religious who is like, I'm not going to do psychedelics because I'm afraid that I'll lose my mind. It's like, wait, so what faith do you
faith
have?
Are we talking about?
Right?
Exactly.
You know, and to think about using more of our brain too, they've shown that the brain fires the fuck up when you're on stuff like LSD or mushrooms. And mushrooms themselves, they used to say, you can't regrow brain tissue, you can't regrow nerves. You know, neurogenesis happens from psilocybin. Yes. So it's like, for one, to even go against the grain, do something illegal, even though the shit is found in nature. Yeah.
Can you imagine? That's crazy.
Right? And then to also have the faith enough to go to that level where it's like, I'm going to potentially experience stuff that is scary. I'm going to confront my own shit, my own demons, my own shadows. I'm going to potentially feel weird in my body. I might throw up. I might shit myself. Who knows what? All the things. I might freak out. And the reward could be healing. The reward could be healing in all the ways.
Exactly.
Yeah. So neurogenesis.
It gets back to the idea of like, you're only going to learn the lesson if there's something worth learning it for.
Right. Yeah. So with all that being said, what, like, am I living in La La Land? Like, do you think that if we were to be able to provide a healthy foundational level, I think the answer is yes, but if we were to be able to create a society that not as a utopia in the sense that like everyone is great and happy, but at least gives children, the new spirits and souls that come onto this plane, the awareness and the healthy reinforcement that you are worthy. You start borderline is so inherently worthy that you have so much power that you have a responsibility with that power. And in that, everyone also has, it's like, I thought about it earlier today. And if someone were to ask me how to relate what I talk about and what I'm about, I'd say, if someone knew that you were a superhero and you didn't know, would you want them to tell you that you have superpowers? And if they did tell you, and then they said, hey, here's another secret, everyone has those same powers. Would you be like, oh, well, hold on a second. There's a lot of responsibility here. Because if everyone has this power, then we gotta, we got some things to do. Right. Yeah. And then in that superpower is also like, okay, here are the specific tools on how we choose to curb our superpowers, which would be like effective communication, everything from owning our stories, projections, conflict resolution, charge carriers, all these things, so that we can navigate at least the most appropriately. Now, in that, there's always the potentiality for the superhero to turn the villain, but there's a very different story than us acting like we are just the civilians when we all have the powers, right? Yeah.
We're not just the civilians that Superman flies over.
Right, exactly.
Like we're Superman. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think kudos to you. I know we're always talking about how do we simplify Sean's message and what he's talking about. I think the easiest way is saying is like, what if you went around to somebody, they didn't know they were a superhero, and you said, you're a superhero. Yeah. And it's like, okay, wow, that's like, whoa, that's so cool. I can shoot lasers. And it's like, okay, cool. And and there's also people over there getting mugged. Yeah. And I'm gonna need you to do something about it now. Yeah. It's like, oh. Yeah. I thought I could just play with my power. Like, oh, you need me to do something now? Yeah. It's different. It's like back to the story of the gangbanger shooting, whatever. It's like, I could have acted like I was just a civilian. Oh, this ain't got nothing to do with me. Yeah. I remember like maybe a couple of years later, I was with a friend and it was on Venice Beach Boardwalk like late at night. And we saw a guy getting mugged. And he was like getting beat with like by 4 guys with like pipes. Yeah. And my friend was like, bro, this ain't got nothing to do with us. It's like, yo, fuck you. Yeah. Fuck you. Yeah. The fact that people like you exist scares the shit out of me. Yep. Where would we be if everybody took that mindset? Right. We would be fucked. Yeah. And I was not going to let us just ignore that. And that's a whole nother story for another time. But yeah, I think that's a great metaphor, this idea of being like, okay, cool. Yeah, go up to the people who are superheroes, but like, yo, you're a superhero. Yeah. Or would you, if you were, would you want me to hide it from you? Knowing that. And that's a wild question to me, because I can't even fathom a reality in which that's a question. Like, I can't imagine that the answer to that would be anything other than tell me. I want you to tell me. And some people, I don't relate necessarily to these people. Is like, no, don't tell me. I'm like, so you're telling me that you can fly. Yeah. And you don't want to know that you can fly? Yeah. And you're down to go the rest of your life not flying, just walking? Yeah. They not like us. They not. I don't get it, bro. Yeah. I don't get it. I'm so glad we got a Kendrick Lamar reference. There you go. What is a Kendrick Lamar? I'm just kidding. It's kind of, they've been saying this forever, but like the Matrix movie, like the Matrix is real. Like, the guy who's like, I just want to eat the steak. I don't care if it's not a real steak. I just want to believe it is. Yeah. You know what I mean? But the interesting thing is, once you know, then you can't go back unless. But I love that you just brought up the Matrix. I wouldn't cut you off. Goddamn, I fucking love the fact we're talking about the Matrix right now. What does he do in that movie? He says, send me back. I want to just like do the thing. But what he says, I don't want to remember nothing. Exactly. Nothing. Yep. Because you know that if you remember who you are, what you came from, it will fucking eat you alive. It will. And you will not be able to enjoy that shit. So it's like, erase that shit from my fucking memory. But you can't. But you fucking can't. But you can't. Exactly. Once you know, you can't. So, and that's kind of where the question lies too, is that like, there will probably be people, and there are already, because I think at a core level, people know that
their core wounding of unworthiness is not real or it's not true.
Yeah.
Even if it resides in them, like, you know, whether it's from being spliced back in the day, you know, they're like, let's create this slave race to mine for gold, right? Serious, or what's called Sumerian times, or it's been indoctrinated through religious dogma, or maybe that's all the same thing. Yeah. I think that at a core level, we all battle with this conflicting fallacy that we are unworthy. And at a core level, we all know it. And that it's so easy to just be like, in the tough moments, to be like, what was I thinking? Yeah, that is the reality, right? Oh, I am unworthy. Oh, I don't have the power, blah, blah, blah. And that keeps us there. But so I do feel like that question for a lot of people, and I know that we can't relate, but they would be like, yeah, you know what? I'd rather not know. And
that just twists my fucking soul, man.
You know, I mean, the funny thing is, you know, the thing that I've said on here, because you already know what I'm about, but I've said it on here like ad nauseum. But I've said, you know, I want people to know they're making a choice. That's all. Because if they know how powerful they are, that they're making a choice, and if they want to go be a killer, whatever, I honor them in doing whatever their path is. Also, with all of that, there are consequences for when we breach someone's sovereignty.
On both sides, yeah.
That's just a part of it. But as long as we get there, at least then we're able to have healthy consequences. We're able to have healthy standards and all that stuff. But it's like, can we even get to that place where that we're able to confront the ownership of choice, right? Because there are going to be those people who are just like, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I don't want to know nothing.
And back to the Matrix, it's like what the entire first movie is about.
Yeah.
Which pill you want?
Exactly.
It's like, you can go back to La La Land and you can pretend like this whole thing didn't happen and fantastic. You will live a lie that you are unworthy and you're just another programmer. Or you can go over here. And it's not going to be easy. That's not what this is. This is not a mushroom. This is a red pill. And I can't guarantee you that it will be easy, but I can guarantee you that it will be the truth.
Dude, saw this thing today. I won't talk about what the political groups are, but one of it said that this group will be mad if you lie to them. This group will be mad if you tell them the truth. You can fill in the blanks based on your own biases.
Yes,
accurate
I love
as fuck.
it. Yeah, it's so
fuck.
clean. Again, simple. So simple,
right? And that ties into the question too. Would you want to be lied to or told the truth? And I feel like there are those of us like ourselves who feel it within us, this calling, this unshakable purpose and need to deliver the truth, because it feels so unjust and dissonant to go along with a charade where, and you know, when you said that, like, I don't give a fuck about these people, like, we only have so much of a container to like care
to expand,
and yet even if they were a despicable person, at a level you would care in the sense that they are spirit, they are like
100%.
And you would want for them, even if you don't even have to know anything about the details, but regardless of who it is, Imari would want any and everyone to live to their potential.
Of course.
Right, exactly.
Yes, of course.
So
but I can't attach myself to being like, if you're committed to doing that and like living that life, living that lie, it's like at some point, like,
you can't have your energy attached.
I have to disconnect myself from that.
Absolutely. And yet, at the end of the day, you would want anyone and everyone to own their shit.
100%.
Yeah, and live that fuck, because, I mean, that's what we're here to do, right? I mean, truly, and or, I mean, I don't know, is it, I can't say all, but I feel like, at least my ethos is that we are here to either rise to the capacity that we've been given.
Occasion,
exactly. Or to deny it. And we're so loved that we're given that, you know, that choice, right?
Yeah. And to me, it's just like, it makes everything so simple. It's like, and when you're lying in your casket, which one would you have rather chosen? I get which one you might want to choose now because it's convenient and because the boys are going out for beers and brewskis, but like...
Yeah, truly.
But when you're in the casket...
Truly,
which one would you rather choose?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, man. May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sweet. take this thing in the final lap. Question for you.
Yeah.
Sean Kubota. How do you want to raise your son?
That's a great question. I want to raise my son, for one, to always be goofy like his dad.
Excellent answer.
And in that goofiness, there's also the fullness of expression, with also having the respect and honor that, and in that respect and honor comes boundaries and consequences for how we conduct ourselves in the reverence and honor of every single other person and the divinity that they carry, the sovereignty that they carry. So there's a deep understanding of the self that lends itself to the deep understanding of each other. Basically, hey, you have superpowers, everyone else does too. They might not realize it, and yet you choose how to show up and how to own the capacity of yourself, and then people will get the allowance of how to do that for themselves through you. And
so basically you want him to make fart jokes, but you don't want him to shit in anybody's bed.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah. He can fart in their bed maybe, but and then there's also, that ties into everything else too, is like, better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war. Even though big respect to gardeners because my grandpa was one, but truly, like, there's a level, just like Peterson talks about, like a dangerous man can choose to be good. A coward or just like a guy who is weak is not good. He's just weak. Right. And
those are actually the dangerous men.
Yeah. Those are the ones that you need to be afraid of.
Exactly.
Yep. And so that's how I'd raise my son or daughter, all the like. So they'd be doing martial arts, but they'd also, and in the reverence and honor and ownership of the self, and then choosing to honor everyone else accordingly and having consequences when we breach standards and boundaries of other people, they'd be raised with the understanding of how to communicate appropriately. And this is why I say this, because I know that it will be hard for me to be able to, in the midst of myself being the human that I've been raised by and being raised with reactive parents, then potentially being
that person.
Similar.
Yeah.
I won't say I won't, because I know that we all will. To be able to surrender and listen to what I've taught them, because that's become their baseline. And then to be like, thank you, young person who's only been here for maybe 5-6 years on this earth, 4 years, 3 years on this earth. Thank you for already knowing what's best. And I'm not going to get mad at you and try to dominate you because you are actually the key. And I'm not going to belittle you or see you as less than because you've been here less times on years on the earth.
Yeah.
You're actually truly the key because I'm the one who's damaged. Yeah. And also teach them about entrepreneurship, financial literacy, all that stuff. But like,
to make sure they got the basics.
but at a core level of like the individual, and that's what I want to build for humanity, to be honest. Not like, and what I ask people on the podcast, and that I want to be very careful of, because we've talked about it as well. Being the severe altruist and the savior is a dangerous archetype to be.
Yeah, been there, done that.
And I think what allows for me to feel okay about what I'm doing is that the core essence of all of this, of sovereignty, of coming to this place of empowerment in these ways, is that you have the choice to do with what you will. It's just the awareness of that choice, and then creating standards that we live by that are just healthier and that are more in alignment, and having appropriate and compromised consequences where everyone is met. Right.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. For me, that's a values conversation.
Right.
It's like knowing what values I want to live by.
Right. Yeah. And what correlate with that virtue as well. Because then it's not like, oh, this is my bias and this is my bias. It's like, if we actually come back to like respecting each other at this level, it's very easy to see what the compromised, solution or where that boundary lies. And then the consequences side is where we end up coming into the space of maybe there have to be creative solutions there. That's where things get messy. But it's very easy to see where the boundaries are.
And the consequences are just a result of the boundaries. It's like, we just, when we go a little bit too far over the boundaries, there's got to be a consequence since we don't fucking go over the boundaries. Yeah.
Something I'd love to ask you, it came up today, there's actually something else that I want to ask you about Christianity, but this guy had said it was a great little meme or something. Sometimes I get these Christian shorts that come up and whatnot. And this guy had mentioned something in Romans 12, but basically what happened is he's a fisherman out in like the bayou or something like that. He's like, these people are stealing from my nets. And I told him, I'm like, hey, don't be stealing from my nets. That's my livelihood. If you need fish, I'll give you some fish, but don't steal from me. And after that, the people stopped stealing from him.
Yep.
And I forget what the message was, but it was basically like, do not do upon evil with evil. Right? So essentially, an eye for an eye makes the world go blind. But like the interesting thing about consequences is that like, what is the aligned, what is the correlated value when someone does something that breaches another sovereignty so severely, right? Someone kills someone, someone does something like that, like, and you might not have an answer for that, but it's been something that's been on my mind because for me, I feel like we potentially value human life almost to a point where it's more because we are too detached from our own mortality. They were like, oh, human life is so above all other life, and by any means, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, for instance, assisted suicide with people who are terminal, stuff like that. And it's like, dude, let them do what they need to do if they want to do it on their own time,
Yeah.
But it's like, oh no, we can't do. We have to. Anyways, there's a lot there. Do you have any thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question, but I think, again, always simplification. It's like, to me, the crux of that story that you just shared with the fisherman is when he was like, hey, this is my livelihood. Yeah. And it just puts into context for the people.
Right.
This is what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, you're not just taking from a never-ending well of fish. Like, this hurts me.
Right.
This is what's happening to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think a lot of times we forget that somebody else is living an entirely different story in a different context.
Yeah.
And when you get them perspective, it's much easier for you to align your context and your stories.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, even in his message, he's like, if you need fish, I will take care of you.
Yeah. He's being magnanimous.
Yeah, 100%. So it's, imagine if like, the whole idea of evil to me is a little bit shaky.
Yeah.
But like, if somebody is barren, they have no food, no resources to them, and then they see a net full of fish. Yeah. I need that fish. Yeah. Right? So the priority is I need to take care of myself. Right. I need to live. I need to be able to take care of my family. If the only way I see that is by taking this, I don't even see it as stealing after a point. I just see it as doing what I need to do. Right. Right? Yeah. But then if somebody comes along and they're like, there is another way. Yeah. I can give you fish. Yeah. Then all of a sudden this person recalibrates their actions and their morality based on a new option. But the new option had to be presented from a place of understanding. It's like, I know that you might not have resources. I know that you might not have fish. Yeah. I can help you. You don't have to do this way. Yeah. And when you do it this way, this is how it's affecting me. Yeah. Right? So it's just painting a more comprehensive picture for both the thief and the fisherman. Right. It's like the fisherman knows like, hey, this person's going through a tough time. Yeah. The thief knows, hey, when I do this, I'm fucking up somebody's life. Yeah. And if we provide that context, now we can come up with more creative solutions. Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. And I think maybe the consequences thing is something that I don't need to have answers to right now. Like it's very easy for me to see what the standards are and then what the boundaries are, because the boundaries are just you doing something that infringes on the standard. Yeah. The consequences are where it gets very, that might be beyond me. And I think that that's okay because, collaboration, having everyone be heard and seen, I feel like it has to be like a culmination of all these different views to find a compromise, something that feels resonant, that is once again being met on all sides. Yeah. But it does become very confusing when it's like someone who kills out of malice and stuff like that, or someone who is a pedophile or something. It's like, what do you do? Because like that pedophile or that person who did malice, like they were probably hurt, right? Yeah. But then it's like, how do you recuperate a person like that? There's all these different questions there. And that's the intricate beauty of being a human being. Like if you believe in a God, God is like, all right, I'm gonna give you all a world. Yeah. I'm gonna toss some murderers in there. some rapists, some pedophiles.
Sociopaths, psychopaths. Yeah.
And I'm also going to give you enough understanding that you realize that these people might not necessarily be inherently evil.
Yeah.
It might be they got fucked up by a situation that you also went through.
Right.
And then he like gives us all these variables and like, he's like, let me see what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. So true, bro. That's it right there.
It's like, it's
right.
a soccer field.
Yeah.
And God paints the soccer field, gives the lines, and here's the goals.
Yeah.
And he throws a soccer ball in. He's like, what are y'all going to do with it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like everyone got cultivated this way. These ones were cultivated in this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
what do you do?
What do you do? And it's on us to be committed enough to make sure that there's a consequence so that we can keep things in line,
right.
but creative enough so that the consequence is in context.
Yeah, and doesn't shatter the heart and the unity of the community, right? Because that's the big thing.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, if every time somebody offends you, you have to kill them. It's like, how quickly is that world going to last?
Exactly.
It's like, and that's what we saw essentially with cancel culture.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, okay, well, as soon as somebody says that or something I don't like, just everybody stop profiting and everybody don't go to their business and just smear their name. It's like, how is that any different than the witch trials?
Right. Yeah.
And now we look back at the witch trials hundreds of years later and like, damn, y'all niggas was stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Y'all were afraid.
Yep.
And you had you did not have enough intelligence to come up with, first of all, is this person actually sinning?
Right.
You didn't even have enough creativity to apply a consequence that was in context.
Yeah.
You were just like, her.
Yeah.
She's able to clap with her feet. Must be a witch. Burn her.
She's not doing what I say.
Yeah, exactly. Burn her. It's like, all right, well,
horrifying.
Crazy that in 2020 we can still have that happening.
Yeah, in a different way.
And people will posture as if they are more morally superior and righteous by doing so.
And that's the severe altruist, or like the misaligned altruist, where it's like, oh, I'm being so good, and then it's like, you're actually causing harm. This is another form of violence, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we're going to look at you in a couple of years the same way people look at the guys who were burning witches during the Salem witch trials. Just be like, oh, you were stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. You were part of that mob.
Yeah, you were the mob.
You were part of the mob who like burned their house down, who lit them on fire, whatever
Living
it was.
on false virtue.
Because, taking away, like doing that, taking away someone's livelihood, what happens then?
And I think I've only said like one cancelable thing on this whole podcast. So.
No, but that's a really, really great point, bro.
Thank you.
So is there something, it could be that because that was fucking great, but is there something specific that you'd want to leave the viewers with? One last message that you want to let them know that is from the heart? If
anything that you just heard in the duration of this podcast touched you, moved you, inspired you, you felt, the only reason that you have that experience is a result of Sean's commitment to his craft. The only reason that you have been affected at all is because a man that you may or may not know had a vision and he said, I'm going to do it. And as somebody who was next to him in the passenger seat on the sidelines watching it happen, I know it wasn't easy. And so maybe you, person listening, could have the same impact on somebody else if you just went after your dreams as well. That's what I would end with.
And got a coach like Imari.
And got a coach like Imari. Yeah, I'm not very good at pitching myself. I'm sorry.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, brother. Yeah.
How can people find you?
People can find me, ImariTuakli.com. IMARITUAKLI.com. If you're interested in booking me for a speaking gig, if you want me to come on your podcast, I might come on your podcast. I don't know, maybe. But if you're looking for a creative coach, that's where you find me. And also, if you want to tap in on a regular basis, you can find me on Instagram. But I don't know how long I'll be on there, so.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Plot twist.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, this Instagram is a shit show, man.
Yeah, bro.
Everybody just buying followers, all this stuff.
Yeah. I'm over it.
Oh, yeah, I feel that. With that being said, all this stuff, all of his information will be linked down below, so easy to find it. Thank you so much for coming on, my guy. Thank you for making the trip over here. Thank you for celebrating season 2, the beginning of the 1% club. You know what I'm saying?
1% club, baby. Let's go.
I really appreciate you, bro.
I love you, my brother.
Love you
I'm
too.
proud of you, man.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Thank you. Yeah. Here it
Onwards
is.
and upwards, baby. Let's go.
He's gonna eat some seaweed now.
Yeah.
This has been the Magnanimous Collective with Imari Tuakli. We catch you on the next one. Peace.
Adios, y'all. They not like us.